These cars didn't purr, they roared like fighter jets. In this video, we're talking about cars so crazy that they borrowed their hearts from airplanes. Yes, real jet engines, powering cars that hit the road or tried to. These weren't just cars, they purred. Why? Because too much power is just a guess.
Make sure to subscribe and smash the like button.
Number 7. The Tucker 48 Experimental Helicar, when cars got a little too high flying. Imagine it's the late 1940s. The war's over, the economy's revving up, and everyone's dreaming big. Jetpacks, moon bases, and flying cars. And then comes Preston Tucker, a man who looked at a helicopter engine and thought, yeah, I want that in a car. Enter the Tucker 48 Experimental Helicar, a prototype that never hit the streets but definitely turned heads. Instead of your average piston engine, Tucker wanted to use a modified Franklin air-cooled helicopter engine, which is exactly as bonkers and brilliant as it sounds. This thing wasn't built to just cruise Route 66. It was meant to whisper, if I wanted to, I could lift off. Why is it cool? Because it was part of that post-World War II wave of wild innovation where engineers mix aviation, automotive design, and a dash of madness. The idea was to create a lighter, more efficient car powered by aviation-grade tech, and maybe, just maybe, get a little closer to that Jetsons future. But it didn't fly, literally or figuratively. The Helicar never reached production, and the whole concept ended up more garage experiment than dealer showroom. Also, federal regulators weren't exactly thrilled about cars with aircraft engines and no history of crash testing. Still, the Helicar earns a spot in automotive legend for doing what Tucker always did best: push boundaries, ask weird questions, and leave us wondering what could have been. It's the car equivalent of that one kid in science class who mixed every chemical together just to see what happened. Sometimes it fizzles, but once in a while, it explodes. Number 6. Let's rewind to 1933, a time when British engineering asked, what if we stopped pretending cars needed to make sense? And thus, the Napier Railton was born, a vehicle that looks like it was designed by someone who really missed World War I and had too much horsepower. Under the hood, just a 24-liter Napier Lion W12 aircraft engine, originally built for fighter planes and racing boats. You know, the kind of power plant that usually comes with wings or floats. The car's creators looked at that and said, perfect for a car, let's bolt it to a steel frame and send it sideways around a track. And that track was Brooklands, a pre-war oval that was more bump than banked. There, the Napier Railton set speed records, endurance records, and likely a few new records in driver bravery or recklessness. It hit 168 miles per hour in the 1930s with no seatbelts, no roll cage, and no common sense. It wasn't street legal, and it sure wasn't subtle. It roared, popped, and belched flames like a mechanical dragon with indigestion. And the best part, it still runs today. You can catch it at events where it shatters eardrums and makes modern supercars feel underwhelming. So, the Napier Railton isn't just a car, is a rolling proof that British engineers once dared to ask, what if a car had the soul of a Spitfire? Spoiler, it worked spectacularly. Number 5. Fiat S76, the Beast of Turin. Because who needs brakes when you have guts? Let's rewind to 1911, a time when men wore goggles as fashion statements and safety features were optional, if not considered weak. Enter the Fiat S76, lovingly and fearfully nicknamed the Beast of Turin. And oh boy. This wasn't just a car, it was a barely contained explosion on wheels. Under the hood, which, by the way, was roughly the size of a small apartment, sat a 28.4-liter inline 4-cylinder engine. Yes, you read that right. 4 cylinders, each roughly the size of a trash can. It was more artillery shell than engine, reducing somewhere around 300 horsepower. In a car with solid rubber tires, no seatbelts, and brakes that basically just slowed down your prayers. Top speed, an estimated 135 miles per hour at a time when most people were still scared of going 40. To put it in perspective, in 1911, elevators were still a novelty. This thing was doing fighter plane speeds before fighter planes existed. Driving it took courage, skill, and possibly a signed will. The exhaust pipes literally shot flames, the bodywork shook like a terrified squirrel, and starting the car often looked like a military operation. And yet, legendary doesn't even begin to cover it. The Beast of Turin was never mass-produced, never tamed, just a giant, fire-spitting reminder that sometimes automotive history isn't written in boardrooms, but in the roar of insanity and a trail of scorched earth. Would you drive it today? Probably not. Would you stand next to it while it runs? Definitely not. But admire it always.
Number 4. Jay Leno's Blastoline Special. When a tank engine meets a midlife crisis. Let's say you're Jay Leno. You have a garage the size of a Costco, a load for anything on wheels, and enough money to make Elon Musk jealous. So what do you drive when Ferraris and Bugattis feel quaint? Easy. You drive a 29.3-liter patent tank engine strapped to a hot rod chassis. Enter the Blastoline Special, also known as the tank car. Built by master fabricator Randy Grubb and later adopted and mildly tamed by Leno himself, this rolling thunderstorm features a Continental V12 that once powered U.S. Army tanks and before that was derived from aircraft technology. Because nothing says daily driver like military-grade engineering designed to crush terrain and possibly enemy morale. Let's talk specs. The engine alone weighs more than most compact cars. The power output? Over 1,600 horsepower. That's not a typo. That's the kind of horsepower that makes tires scream for mercy and gas stations tremble in fear. Oh, and it can be street-driven, assuming you don't mind taking up 2 parking spots and attracting crowds everywhere you stop. But here's the real magic. Despite its apocalyptic size and power, the Blastoline is actually refined. Jay added twin turbos, improved the cooling, refined the suspension, essentially turning a battlefield brute into a boulevard cruiser, albeit one that sounds like Mount Vesuvius having a tantrum. Is it practical? Not even close. Is it eco-friendly? Definitely not. But is it automotive absurdity at its finest? Oh, absolutely. In a world of hybrids and efficiency, the Blastoline Special reminds us that sometimes too much is just right, especially when your engine was once designed to win wars.
Number 3. It's 1963. JFK is president, the space race is heated up, and America's obsession with jet-powered everything is peaking. Chrysler looks around and says, "Hey, what if we skipped the boring piston engines and gave your grandma a literal jet engine in her driveway?" And thus, the Chrysler turbine car was born. Yes, this car had an actual turbine jet engine under the hood. No pistons, no spark plugs, just a spinning, whirring, aviation-grade power plant that made your morning commute sound like a Boeing 707 warming up for takeoff. And it wasn't just a concept. Chrysler built 55 of them, handed them out to real families in a public trial, and told them to give it a go. The engine could run on everything from kerosene to tequila, and seriously, one guy tried it. And the car looked sleek, space age, and futuristic enough to park on the moon. So, why did it fail? Well, turns out jet engines and suburbia don't mix. The exhaust was so hot it could melt the bumper off the car behind you. Fuel economy? Think dumpster fire. And turbine lag meant you'd press the gas, wait a beat, then whoosh, off you went. In the end, the government got nervous, emissions regulations loomed, and Chrysler pulled the plug. Of the original 55, all but 9 were destroyed, mostly at the hands of accountants and lawyers. But here's the thing, the Chrysler turbine car was decades ahead of its time. It was street legal, it was real, it was loud, it was glorious.
Number 2. The Beast, UK 1972, when madness met horsepower. Let's say you woke up one morning in 1972 and thought, you know what my Rolls-Royce needs? A fighter plane engine. Enter John Dodd, a man who looked at the 27-liter Rolls-Royce Merlin V12, the same engine that powered the Spitfire, the P-51 Mustang, and other World War II warbirds, and said, yeah, let's put that in a car. And he did. Thus was born the Beast, a Frankenstein creation that looked like a dragster dressed for a wedding, with a long nose, sleek black bodywork, and an engine capable of starting a small war. Originally fitted into a burned-up Rolls-Royce Phantom chassis, Dodd rebuilt it with custom everything: transmission, frame, even the body, after a fire. Yes, of course it caught fire. The Merlin V12 cranked out 750 to 1,000 plus horsepower, depending on who was brave enough to dyno it that week. Guinness even crowned it the world's most powerful road car at one point, because there were no rules against sheer lunacy. Now, did it corner? Absolutely not. Was it practical? Don't be ridiculous. Did it guzzle fuel like a Black Friday sale? Of course. But did it turn heads and shake the pavement? Oh, yes. Rolls-Royce wasn't thrilled about their name on something that sounded like a bombing run, so they sued. Dodd responded by simply replacing the grille with his own initials. Problem solved. The Beast still exists today after restoration and several lives. In short, the Beast was proof that when British eccentricity meets aviation surplus, magic happens.
Number 1. The Rolls-Royce Phantom 1's Meteor Special is a terrifyingly elegant machine, packed with the 27-liter V12 Meteor engine, the same beast that powered British World War II tanks like the Centurion. Oh, and that engine, it's based on the legendary Rolls-Royce Merlin, the same one that sent Spitfires screaming through the skies. This isn't your average purring Phantom. This thing roars like a Lancaster bomber on a bad day, pumping out over 600 horsepower and torque equivalent to shifting tectonic plates. The idea of putting a Meteor engine in a 1920s Rolls seems ridiculous now. Because it is. The engine barely fits under the bonnet. The firewall had to be moved. The gearbox had to be begged not to explode. The original brakes, hilariously imperfect. It was like trying to roll a racehorse on roller skates. But that's the beauty of it. It still looks like a refined Rolls-Royce, sleek, stately, until you fire it up and the neighbors think the RAF is low-flying again. The controls? It's half car, half battleship. More steering wheel than dashboard, more clatter than radio. And let's be honest, parking it is more like mooring a yacht. But make no mistake, the Meteor Special is British madness at its most glorious. It's a glorious contradiction.
a luxury airliner with a warhead for an engine, and it proves one eternal truth. Thanks. Subscribe.